Hi everyone, let's understand query processing and caching. Now, when it comes to caching data in Snowflake, there are essentially three different types. The first one is the results of your SQL query, which is cached. The second one is the actual data from your centralized Snowflake storage, which is cached in the SSD disk of your virtual warehouse. Now, this cache is also referred to as local cache. And finally, you have your metadata like min and max values, total count in a table, so on and so forth, which is cached in the metadata caching with the help of cloud services layer. Now, let's see each one of this in action. So let's go back to Snowflake. First thing I'm going to do is say use role sysadmin. Guys, just make sure you use the sysadmin role. You do not want to be an account admin when you write SQL queries. It's very bad practice. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to set the schema in context. So I'm going to say use schema e-commerce live. Next, I'm using a large warehouse here. Now you guys can feel free to use the smaller one. Now let's look at the metadata type of caching, right? Now expand the schema. I want to see the total number of rows in the line item table. So what do I do? Select counter one from line item. Now you can actually tell by the execution time, it takes 30 milliseconds, right? So there's absolutely no way there was data scans involved. Let's click on the query ID. Now it says query result reuse. Now this is possibly because I've already executed this query before. Now, if I want to clear the query cache, let's set the use cache result to false. Now let me run this again. Again, it took 47 milliseconds. Let's click on the query ID. Now it says metadata based result. Okay. Once you clear your result cache, this still didn't go to the remote storage. It comes from the metadata based result. Okay. Let's fire another query. Instead of saying select counter one, I want to say select min of, let's say select min of order key and max of order key. So you can see 26 milliseconds. Let's click on the query ID. Again, metadata based result. Okay, so metadata type of queries comes from the metadata cached layer. Now let's actually write an aggregate query. I'm just going to copy these two commands over here. I've set a variable called current underscore dt just for the sake of simplicity, and the value is 1st of August 1998. Now why did I do this? It's because the max value in our table line item is, I believe, 1st of November 1998. So just to keep queries in relation to the current date, I defined a variable called current underscore dt. So let me execute this. Now let's say you want the sum of quantities, total orders grouped by ship date and ship mode for the last 7 days. So this is a simple query that I wrote. Select sum, count of star, ship date, ship mode from table where date is greater than or equal to current date minus 7, current date being this value, and I'm just grouping by ship date and mode. So let's execute this query. Now you see it took 2.3 seconds. What happened there? Let's click on the query ID. Now if you focus on the right hand side, profile overview section, it says remote disk IO is 40%, which is kind of okay. But if you see percentage scanned from cache, 0%. This is the first time you executed this query and there was no data in your cache. All right. So byte scanned is 235 MB and nothing was read from cache. Now let's go back and execute the exact same query. Okay. You can see it took 1.78 seconds. Let's look at the query ID. Now this is the point of focus. You see percentage scan from cache is 100%. okay? And there was absolutely no remote disk IO. That metric is gone from here. And partition scan is 280. So it says a lot of things as to how to reuse your cache data. Now let's say you want to tweak this query, right? Instead of 7 days, you want to get data for the last 10 days. Now let's see what happens. It took 2 seconds, which is a little longer than the last time. Let's click on the query ID. You can see the remote disk IO was 3%, so which is not bad, but as opposed to the first time we executed it, which was 40%, it has come down to 3%. Percentage scanned from cache is still 95.48%. Now it's kind of obvious we increased the data or the range of data that we wanted by from 7 days to 10 days. So 5% of the data was read from the remote storage, which is perfectly fine. Now let's see how much of this comes from the result cache. So I'm going to clear my result cache now by saying use cache result to false. Now let's run this query again. It took 1.7 seconds. Now you can see none of that came from the query results cache because percentage scan from cache is 100%, which means this is coming from the local cache of the warehouse. All right. Now let's go back to the worksheet and let's try to clear the warehouse local cache. All right. Now, how do you do that? Like I mentioned before, the only way to clear your warehouse cache is by suspending the warehouse. So I'm going to say alter warehouse prod underscore Excel. Sorry. Suspend. Okay. I've suspended my warehouse. I'm going to resume it back now. So I've resumed it. Now let's run this query. Right? It took 2.18 seconds. You can see the percentage scan from cache is 0 because we cleared the local cache. And again, the remote disk is 40%. So I hope the concept of caching is clear. And moving forward, we'll be referencing to the query processing section of our query tab time and again, as in when we build more pipelines. So next up, we'll be looking at another important feature when it comes to optimizing your tables called search optimization. So I'll see you guys there. Thanks for watching.